My paper is on sweatshops in Myanmar. This is my presentation. I will be shortening the paper that I read in order to make it fit within the allotted time. So the introduction, Myanmar is an place of exploited labor as the use of sweatshops and child labor is being used by factories in the production of goods that has emerged due to increasing globalization. The emergence of exploited labor is related to globalization and began due to an increase in financial, political, and global connections, which has caused corporations to look for different ways to produce goods quickly, leading to the exploitation of workers. An article by The Guardian has examined the use of child labor and looked at the outside influences that are creating the need for this increase and how they're exploiting it in exchange for the increased production of goods. Another scholarly article that has been looking at Myanmar has instead studied the financial, global, and political reasons as to how these sweatshops started and how the increase in global connections is correlated with the increase in exploited labor in Myanmar. So one of the first reasons is financial reasons. Financial reasons is a lot one of the big reasons in Myanmar for the exploited labor, uh, which occurred due to the greed of companies who desire high productivity for cheap work. It was found in the article by The Guardian that many companies such as H&M and some others were supporting factories in Myanmar that were using child labor, and they were only paying these workers 13p an hour, which was only allowing them to live in makeshift huts with no water or electricity, as this is all they could afford since they were being paid so little. This use of cheap labor has allowed many companies to make great profits as the workers are able to be exploited and be paid few low wages, and these companies and these factories are the main supporters of these companies exploiting them, so they're making them forced to comply with their wages. Uh, Due to this, Myanmar saw a very rapid increase in exports from 2010 to 2014, and their exports tripled to 787 million pounds. And they saw also a big increase in factories, as 400 factories were built to support this increase in production. So another reason was political. So in addition to one of the ways, Myanmar had a very big political change, and so they're becoming more and more democratic. And because of this, many trade sanctions that they had with the EU or other Western countries were being removed. So then they could instead shift their products through Myanmar and take advantage of the cheap tariffs that they had. So this had a very big increase on the exports of Myanmar as their apparel exports like almost tripled in size and became to 1.67 billion pounds from what they started in 2010, which was around 587 million. So, because they changed their political system, many systems took advantage of this, and the rapid increase in exports also created a need for these cheap workers where they paid them cheap salaries in order to make it happen. So, global connections, one of the big reasons for global connections was because of this political change, many countries started to take note of the cheap tariffs that were in Myanmar. Japan was the first one who exploited them because it was a lot cheaper for them using China was the first person for Japan, and they had high production rates with them. But as soon as Myanmar started giving them reduced tariffs in favor of Japan, they started making more and more products with them. Uh, this also occurred as a trend between other Western and EU countries, and Myanmar had a very big increase in exports of apparel, where they paid workers low salaries and increased factory sizes in order to have a huge production, so countries could get a higher increase in profits. This happens, and as soon as other countries started to notice this exploitation of labor, they tried to take advantage. But as soon as the other parts of the world noticed as well, they would make notes and try to increase the wages of the people living there. This happened in China, and global attention started to focus on the child labor happening there, and so wages started rising, and so many companies turned to Myanmar or other poor countries where they could exploit the labor there. The search for cheap labor never stops as countries seek to increase profits, and they will do so until they are not able to. So, conclusion: Myanmar has experienced labor due to financial, political, and an increase in global connections, due to the increase in globalization and a need for lower tariffs to make higher profits and export a larger amount of goods. Uh, Due to lower tariffs and a change in political structure, many companies from around the world were able to discover the cheap labor that is at Myanmar and exploit workers and many children in exchange for higher profits. And this has led to, since their greed is more important to them than people's lives. And then my thing is over.